More women in the US are dying from childbirth-related causes today than in most of recent history. Shockingly, the maternal death rate is on the decline elsewhere around the globe, but right here in the US, it's on the rise. And what's even lesser known is that about 60% of these deaths are actually happening in the postpartum period and are considered preventable. You may be wondering, how on earth is this a problem here today? Well, women are spending about 20 hours on average preparing for childbirth, but only 0 to 2 hours preparing for postpartum. This is considering that the average childbirth lasts only about 8 hours, while the postpartum period is 1,000 times longer, and yet women are preparing for it 10 to 20 times less. The average postpartum lasts about 8,000 hours. That means that when a woman prepares for her childbirth, but not also for postpartum, she is preparing for the first 8 hours of her birthing continuum, but not for the next 8,000. And because of this, we're seeing that about 91% of women feel that postpartum is actually harder than childbirth. Now, if we were to take a closer look into the lives of some of those that feel this way, we would see that roughly 1 in 5 of these women will report experiencing postpartum depression. Postpartum depression has reached epidemic levels. That's right, 1 in 5 of all new women all over the world will report experiencing postpartum depression. But that statistic fails to take into account the many undiagnosed and unreported cases that fall through the cracks of our very cracked maternal health care system and never get on anyone's radar, including the mother's herself, like my own. This is a photo of me with my firstborn son, Max, in 2013. I had a smile on my face. Nothing is noticeably wrong with me. But at the time that this photo was taken, I was experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety. But because I, like so many women today, had absolutely no education, no awareness, and no real understanding of what mild to moderate postpartum depression or anxiety even looked like, I had absolutely no idea what was happening to me at the time. It wasn't until almost 2 years later, when I was sitting in an auditorium, much like this one, taking notes in a professional training on postpartum care, that I first realized that my life matched perfectly with the subject matter that was being presented, and that I was one of those women who had suffered from perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And I was shocked. Can you even imagine? There I was, becoming trained to help other women with these issues, and I was the one who needed help. And I was angry too. How could I not have known? How could the countless friends, family members, birth workers, and medical professionals I had come in contact with during that time in my life not have known? I should not have needed to become a trained professional. You should not need to become trained professionals. All birthing women should not need to become trained professionals before they finally have the information that they need in order to make sense of what is happening in their own lives after birthing their children. But they say hindsight is 20/20. Because even though I didn't know what was happening at the time, now I can tell you exactly what happened. When I first became a mother, I was afraid to fall asleep at night for fear that I wouldn't hear the sound of my baby's cry. I felt worried about whether or not my baby was breathing every time he fell asleep in his crib or car seat. I felt a wave of nerves and panic at the very sound of his cry because I alone felt responsible for making it stop. I felt frustrated and emotional about my difficult postpartum recovery and the difficulty that I had with breastfeeding. I felt lethargic and depleted from excessive amounts of sleep deprivation. And on top of all of that, I felt guilty and weepy for feeling so weak and helpless. But because I, like so many women today, had absolutely no knowledge about what a normal and healthy postpartum should even look like, I, like so many others, was left to conclude that this must just be what early motherhood is like. And because we are all so isolated and lacking both community and better information in our postpartum lives, this level of naivete is really not all that uncommon. You see, back when I first started helping postpartum women, I was co-moderating a local postpartum support group that was marketed as a fun and friendly meetup. But of the 100+ women who walked through our doors over the years, truly, almost all of them exhibited some signs of postpartum depression or anxiety, and yet almost none of them self-identified or even had a sneaking suspicion. So this can and does happen to anyone. And when it does, poor maternal health has an effect that ripples and touches much more than just that one woman's life. Poor maternal health can impact babies. It can impact families. It can impact employers. It can impact entire communities at large of which these women are a part. Luckily, the world is starting to wake up to the fact that the postpartum period deserves our attention. Last May, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology released new guidelines on optimizing postpartum care, which stated that giving women better anticipatory guidance about the postpartum period was proven to help maternal health outcomes. AWON, the Association of Women's Health Obstetric and Neonatal Nurses, just released new educational programming for medical professionals that will teach them the post-birth warning signs so that they can see whether or not there's a medical emergency after a woman gives birth. And this education will help them save lives. So knowledge is power. Science also states that as little as just 4 to 6 sessions of postpartum support, whether that be attending talk therapy or being a part of a postpartum support group or community, either in person or online, can reduce both the intensity and the duration of most perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So community is immunity. Similarly to the research done by the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, was research done by the Peter C. Alderman Foundation, now called Health Right International, in Uganda. In their work with women in war-torn Uganda who had screened positive for postpartum depression, they found that administering as little as just 1 hour of postpartum education helped 80% of the women report reduced symptoms after just 4 weeks. That's right. Just 1 hour of postpartum education helped 80% of women feel better. So we have proof that postpartum education works. We can solve so many of these maternal health crises if we could only raise awareness about the need for women to have better postpartum education. What birthing women today really need is to be as prepared for postpartum, if not more so, as they are for childbirth. If we can do this, then we will see a reduction in the number of cases of maternal deaths. We will see a reduction in the number of cases of postpartum depression and anxiety. And we will see a reduction in the number of cases of other perinatal mood and anxiety disorders as well. So if you're sitting there wondering what you can do to help the birthing women in your community have better immunity, and if you're wondering what you can do to help the new and expectant mothers you know, go out and tell them that postpartum education now exists. Tell them to find it. Tell them to take it. And tell them that building their postpartum support community is key. We have to start better preparing women for their postpartum lives outside of just helping them purchase things off their baby registries. Because knowledge is power. Community is immunity. And all women deserve a better postpartum. I am Natalie Telyatnikov, the founder of Better Postpartum. Thank you for your time.